Hi there, it's Rob. Just wanted to go through a few things following on from the Vectorworks Spotlight Basics tutorials. The first one is the difference in use of layers and classes. So there's two things Vectorworks uses within the document to organise itself in terms of objects and the way things are drawn and viewed. And they both come down in the navigation panel. We'll have a look at them in a minute. The first one is layers and the second one is classes. Well, let's take classes first. Classes basically give you an opportunity to edit your line weights and colours and also your fill types and colours in one place. So instead of setting it on a per object basis, so you setting it like for instance a rectangle to have a solid black outline and a red fill, you can set the whole class to have a specific look, and then every object you create within that class can be assigned to that. You can also assign them back on object level, but initially you can assign a class a particular line weight and a particular fill, and that will give you the opportunity to set all of those objects in one place. Classes can also be used to show or hide information while you're working on the document, and you can also lock them down. So if you didn't want to, for instance, if you didn't want to edit your seating, having already drawn it and been happy with it, you can lock it down so that you don't keep moving it every time you're working on something over the top. If you don't want to see the seating altogether, you can hide the class. So classes are used to organise actual objects. So for instance, if you wanted to say all of your chairs could be one particular class, maybe all of your soft goods, your drapes or something could be another class. It's a very good way of grouping all different types of objects together, which is kind of why it's called classes, really, because a different class of objects per class. Layers have all the same kind of things that classes do, and this is where the slight confusion comes in within Vectorworks. Layers are generally used for physical 3D layers. So if you imagine a 3-story building, you might use a layer for your ground floor, you might use another layer for your first floor and another layer for your second floor. So generally layers they also have the same properties that classes do, but they can be used in a number of other ways in Vectorworks, and it's quite important to understand the difference. The main thing about layers is that you can work with Z height. So Z height is the height from your base level, your floor, when you're working in 3D. So if the stage floor or the ground floor is at 0, your first floor might be at 3 meters or something. So that's what Z height is. Also within layers you can also set line weights and fills and show and hide them as well. Now this is where the confusion becomes in, because you can set two different properties in different places, and then you can get in a bit of a mix-up as to whether you change your line weight or your fill via the class or whether you change it via the layer. Obviously that's quite a powerful tool, but it also means that you can get into a muddle. So let's have a quick look at Vectorworks then, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so what I've done is I've got a small theatre here, a set of walls and a door, and I've also got a stage which is up here at the top of the picture in a kind of blue rectangle. So that's what I've got to start with. I've also created 3 layers, the layers being the second tab in the navigation palette, the design layers. My 3 layers are the floor, which is the theatre floor, the stage, which is going to be the stage deck level, so anything you put on the stage, and also a layer for the grid, which is going to be up in the roof. Now, if I show you what classes have been created here, I've created a few other classes as well. So there's a class here which is called rigging, and one which I've created called staging, and one which is the walls. So the other ones here are also created by the ones here with the sills and stuff like that. They're all created by the fact that I have a door object here. But basically, I've created a few myself. Now, if you remember how to create layers or classes, you just click on the little arrow on the right hand side and hit new, and then you can fill in the properties as you go, as in one of the earlier tutorials. Okay, so if I flick over to this, at the moment we're looking at a 2D view, we're looking at the top plan view. If I flick over to a right isometric view, you can see there there's my stage. It's kind of a 3D stage, it's a 1 meter high block, and also the walls are here, but they don't have any height to them at the moment, so they're ready to go, and there's the door there. Now, the first thing I wanted to show you, one of the reasons the walls haven't got any height to them, is when I set these walls up, I set them to basically mirror the height of the layer that they're going to be on. So the base, if you were doing a ground floor of a building, you might decide that the walls in that particular floor of the building were maybe 2.5 meters high or something. Now, what I want to show you is these walls have got a sort of 0Z height at the moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the floor, and I'm going to click Edit, which is going to be Control and right click on a Mac. And what I want to show you here is these few options here within the design layers. So if you remember, you can set the name and you can set the scale and stuff like that. You can also set the actual Z height of the layer itself. So at the moment I'm going to set that to 0 because that's where my ground floor starts at 0. But also you can also set the top of that layer. So a delta Z is basically, for instance, in the top of our walls, it will be how high the walls come up within the layer. Now, delta Z can be used for quite a few different things, but what I'm going to just demonstrate to you now is how that works. So if I put 5 meters into here and click OK, my walls automatically go to 5 meters. Now I could draw the walls object at 5 meters, but then I wouldn't be able to edit them again afterwards. Whereas what I can actually do now is I can do the same thing again, whereas I can edit it back to something else, and I can actually edit it to 4 meters. And you see the walls get shorter. So that's the delta Z attribute. It's something that if you're working in 3D, it's quite important, and you can use for quite powerful, impactful ways. What I wanted to demonstrate was the idea of the Z height. So there's our walls. Anyway, we were happy with our walls. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to make our walls disappear, so we don't have to look at them. So now we've just got our stage. Now our stage is here and it's 1 meter high. Now I've got also, the stage is sat on the floor, it starts at 0. Now I've also got a stage layer which I'm going to put something on stage, and if I edit that layer there, I can show you that what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the Z height, i.e. the height from the sort of base of the document, 1 meter, to mirror the height of the stage. And what that'll do is it will actually put everything on that layer at 1 meter. So let's just go back to top plan so we can kind of see what we're getting up to. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a circle on stage. So there's my circle there. If we go back to the isometric view, you can see that circle is not on the floor, it's on the stage. And that's because it's set to the stage layer. And if I set the height of that stage layer to be something else, say I'm going to make a Z height of 2 meters, you can see the circle moves up accordingly. I'll set that back to 1 meter again. And then what we're going to do with this circle, to make it into a pillar rather than a circle, we're going to make it into a cylinder. So I've got it selected and I'm going to go to extrude, and then I'm going to give it an extrusion height of 2 meters, say. Okay, so that's my cylinder on stage. Now if I change the height of the stage, if I set it to 1 meter 50, for example, it wouldn't take a lot for me to make sure that I change that stage height and make sure that everything else was at the right height if I'd made the stage higher. So you can see why it's easier to use layers for physical layers in a room, because effectively every time you draw on that layer, it draws at that particular height. Now classes are different, because classes basically don't have any kind of height in space. They're just there to set line weights and colours and all that kind of thing, and to set visibility. So that's quite good if you want to, for instance, as I said, put all of your one type of thing like your walls or something. You can have your walls in one class. Now I've set these walls to be a specific class. Now what I'm going to show you now is I'm just going to edit the properties of that class so I can change the colour of the walls. Well, I'm going to change my pen style to some kind of green colour. And then hopefully you can see there, it's not a very nice green colour, hopefully you can see there that, so that's basically, you imagine that you have a whole document full of a lot of objects. You don't want to have to go around changing individual objects' line colours just when you decide that you need a new line colour scheme or a new fill scheme or something like that for a particular thing. So that's why classes is very useful. You can do the same thing with layers, but perhaps layers are kind of more complicated in the sense that you can use them as physical layers in your document. And the only thing I'd advise is that if you are going to change layer colours and layer line weights, that you make sure you make some kind of order of it, because otherwise you'll end up having set some of your line weights and colours in a layer. Some of them will be then changed via a class, and then individually, if you go down to object level, you might, for instance, select a particular object like which set the stage, and then we're going to change it to something completely different. So just to recap then, with classes you can use classes to edit lines or fills in one place, and obviously navigate around your document showing or hiding or locking things, and organise different classes of objects. With your layers, although you can do all the same things, ideally you should use your layers for physical layers in space, whether it be a ground floor or a stage floor or a roof height, and also to help you work with Z height when it comes to the setting and easily editing the tops of objects such as walls and other things that work within Vectorworks that have property that can be controlled via the delta Z. Now, if you need to look back through those, the best thing to do is to edit either the layer or the class and find out where the fields are that you do to set that, and then you'll get a better understanding, have a bit of a play around with it, and you'll get a better understanding of how that actually works. Hopefully that's been helpful. I'll see you again soon.